The waitress spotted the micro-gesture of the fake courier and shielded the CEO before chaos erupted. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The evening was a typical one at the upscale restaurant. The crystal chandeliers above cast their warm glow over the polished marble floors as the finest of Manhattan's elite gathered for dinner. At table 7, the CEO of a leading tech company sat alone, checking his phone with one hand while swirling his drink with the other. Jack Anderson, in his tailored suit, looked every bit the part of a powerful, successful businessman, but his mind was elsewhere. His thoughts were preoccupied with an important deal he had to close the following day. The restaurant buzzed with the chatter of business tycoons and well-dressed socialites, but Jack was lost in his world, barely noticing the people around him. Enter Christina Matthews, a waitress who had worked at this restaurant for a year. She was in her mid-20s, with an unassuming, quiet demeanor that allowed her to move through the room unnoticed by most. She was no stranger to the hustle and bustle of the job, but she had a remarkable gift for observing people, catching details that others often missed. Tonight, however, she would need more than just her usual instincts. As she walked past Jack's table, her sharp eyes caught sight of something unusual. A man in a heavy jacket entered the restaurant, carrying a large package, his eyes scanning the room. He looked out of place in the elegant setting, his casual demeanor a stark contrast to the sleekness of the restaurant's atmosphere. Christina's trained eyes saw the way he adjusted his collar, the subtle but quick glance he shot toward Jack's table. It was the slightest of gestures, but it immediately triggered a sense of unease in her. The man was acting strange. As she approached Jack's table with his drink order, she kept an eye on the man, who had now moved closer to Jack, his presence becoming more conspicuous. Christina's heart raced for a moment. She had worked in this restaurant long enough to know when something wasn't right. Her instincts told her that the man wasn't just a delivery person. He was up to something. The man walked up to Jack, handing him the large package, smiling in a manner that seemed too forced. Jack looked up, briefly glancing at the man, before accepting the package, distracted by the text messages on his phone. Christina felt a chill down her spine. Without thinking, she made her decision. She walked up to Jack's table, her voice calm but firm as she gently placed her hand on his shoulder. "Mr. Anderson, I think you should hold off on opening that," she said, her gaze shifting toward the man. Jack looked up at her, a smirk forming on his lips. "What are you talking about? It's just a package." He chuckled, brushing off her concern. "It's probably just a gift from a business partner." But Christina was insistent. She didn't let go of her hand on his shoulder. "Trust me, sir, something's not right. That man's behavior, the way he's acting, it's not just a delivery." Jack's smirk faltered as he looked at her, sensing her seriousness. He glanced over at the man, who was now standing a little too still, staring at them both. Jack's gut tightened, a subtle shift in his demeanor indicating that he had started to take notice. Before he could respond, Christina moved quickly. She stepped between Jack and the man, blocking his path. "I need you to step back," she said to the man, her voice now commanding. The man hesitated, his eyes narrowing. The moment stretched, the tension thick in the air. The man made a sudden movement, reaching into his jacket, and Christina instinctively stepped forward, knocking the package from his hands and pushing Jack behind her. In an instant, the fake courier revealed a concealed weapon, a small blade, flashing under the restaurant's lights. But before he could make any further move, Christina acted. Using the swift reflexes she'd honed over the years, she managed to wrestle the blade from his grasp and force him to the ground, holding him in place until security arrived. Jack, still frozen behind her, watched in stunned silence as the situation unraveled before his eyes. His mind raced. This quiet, unassuming waitress had just saved his life. What had just happened was not what he had expected from someone in her position, and for the first time, he found himself deeply impressed. He had always viewed people like Christina as just part of the background, the invisible workers who served the food and drinks. But today, she had proven to be so much more. As security escorted the man out, Jack turned to Christina, his voice filled with gratitude and awe. "I owe you my life." She simply nodded, her expression calm and controlled, as though she had just done what needed to be done. "It's my job, sir." But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he had just witnessed something extraordinary, the true power of someone who had been overlooked. He had no idea that this encounter would change the course of both their lives in ways he could never have anticipated. The aftermath of the chaos was still settling in as the heavy security doors closed behind the now subdued fake courier. The atmosphere in the restaurant was thick with tension, the sounds of cutlery and conversation stilled for a moment, as if everyone knew something major had just happened. Jack Anderson stood frozen for a moment, his mind trying to catch up with the rapid series of events that had unfolded. One moment he was a powerful CEO, comfortably nestled in his high-status bubble. The next he was saved by the very person he had so easily dismissed just hours before. Christina Matthews, the waitress, stood still, her gaze not on the fallen man, but on the room. She was already shifting into a professional mode again, her calm demeanor betraying no sign of the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "You saved my life," Jack said, his voice thick with disbelief and gratitude. Christina merely nodded, offering him a small, respectful smile. "It's my job, sir," she replied, her voice steady as ever. Her response was so matter-of-fact, it left Jack more in awe than before. It was clear now that she was no ordinary waitress. Jack could hardly believe what had just happened. He had seen people in his circle do incredible things, but nothing like this. He had been taught to measure worth by numbers and status, and now he was standing in front of someone whose quiet actions had spoken louder than any corporate deal ever could. As the restaurant slowly returned to its usual hum, with the staff resuming their duties, Jack couldn't help but notice how everyone seemed to treat Christina with a certain level of respect. The way the other waitstaff exchanged glances, the way the managers subtly nodded to her. It was clear that she held a different kind of authority here, one that wasn't granted by position or title, but earned through her presence and skill. As she walked back to her section, Jack followed her with his eyes, contemplating his next move. It was strange, but in that moment, he realized that he wanted to know more about her. He wanted to know how someone who could perform such extraordinary feats was working in a place like this. He needed to find out who Christina Matthews truly was. Meanwhile, Christina moved about the restaurant as if nothing unusual had happened. She greeted customers, served drinks, and continued working with her usual efficiency. To anyone watching, she appeared to be the same humble, focused waitress. But Jack knew better now. There was something deeper, something she wasn't letting anyone see. As the evening wore on, Jack's mind raced. He had been thinking of nothing but business all day. Yet now, he found himself unable to stop thinking about Christina. He had witnessed firsthand her quick thinking, her ability to stay calm under pressure, and her surprising strength of character. He realized that he could not simply let this go. He had to learn more. A few minutes later, as the dinner rush began to die down, Jack made his move. He signaled to the manager, asking for Christina's name and if she could come over to his table when she had a moment. The manager seemed surprised but nodded, and soon enough, Christina was standing before him. "Mr. Anderson," she greeted him politely, her tone still professional but with a hint of wariness, as though she expected some kind of formality. Jack could sense that she was cautious, perhaps even confused about why he had asked for her. He didn't waste any time. "Christina, I don't want to keep you long, but I need to ask you something," he began. His words were sincere, and Christina, sensing the seriousness in his voice, nodded for him to continue. "What made you react the way you did tonight?" he asked, leaning forward slightly, his eyes searching hers for an answer. She didn't flinch, but there was a brief flicker of hesitation in her eyes before she responded. "It was instinct," she said simply, the words rolling off her tongue with a kind of quiet assurance. "I saw something that didn't feel right, and I acted." Jack frowned slightly, but the sincerity in her voice was undeniable. There was no bravado, no pride in her words, just the simple truth of someone who had seen danger and chose to protect. "You saved my life," he said again, this time more softly, almost to himself. Christina didn't respond at first. Instead, she stood there, looking at him with an almost imperceptible shift in her posture. She was still the same woman, the same waitress, But Jack couldn't shake the feeling that there was so much more to her than met the eye. She met his gaze, her expression unreadable. "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Anderson," she said. "I didn't do it for gratitude. I did it because it was the right thing to do." The bluntness of her words struck Jack again. There was no attempt to humble herself, no desire for recognition, just a pure, unfiltered sense of duty. Jack couldn't recall the last time he had met someone so completely unaffected by the world around them. Most people he dealt with were consumed by the quest for more power, more money, more status. But here was someone who acted out of nothing more than a sense of personal responsibility. As Christina turned to leave, Jack's voice stopped her. "Christina," he called, his voice firmer now, the weight of the moment behind it. She paused, looking back at him with a question in her eyes. "I think you're capable of much more than this. I want to offer you a position, something more fitting for your skills." His words hung in the air between them. She didn't react immediately. Instead, she simply nodded and gave him a polite, but guarded smile. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Anderson. But for now, I'm where I need to be." And with that, she walked away, leaving Jack with a sense of both awe and frustration. As she disappeared into the bustling crowd of the restaurant, Jack couldn't help but feel a stirring inside him, a new curiosity for the woman who had saved his life, and perhaps, in some ways, saved him from himself. The following days were a blur for Christina Matthews. Her mind kept replaying the moment in the restaurant, when her instincts had pushed her into action and saved Jack Anderson's life. She was still working at the restaurant, serving meals and drinks, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Jack had offered her a job, but she had turned him down, politely, as she had done countless times before with other offers from those in power. She had no interest in joining their world. Yet, this time, it felt different. Jack had been different. The next day, after her shift ended, Christina found herself walking past Anderson Capital's gleaming skyscraper on her way home. Her steps slowed as she gazed up at the building, her thoughts clouded. She could still see Jack's face as he had offered her the position. There was a sincerity in his eyes that was impossible to ignore. Still, she had made up her mind. She didn't belong in that world. She had a life here, with her friends and her community. It was simpler, safer. Yet, the pull of what Jack had said lingered, nagging at her. She shook her head as if trying to shake the thought away. As she passed by a small park, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She fished it out, expecting a text from a friend or a roommate. But when she saw the name on the screen, her heart skipped a beat. It was from Jack. "Christina, I hope you're doing well. I haven't heard back from you, and I just wanted to make sure you're okay. If you change your mind about the position, I'd love to talk. No pressure. Jack Anderson." Christina stood still in the middle of the sidewalk, her mind racing. She had been doing so well, keeping her distance from people like him, people with power and money. But now, here he was, reaching out again. She stared at the message for a moment, then put her phone away without replying. She wasn't ready to face him yet. She had made her choice. That night, as Christina worked the dinner shift, the restaurant was unusually quiet for a Friday evening. She moved from table to table with practiced ease, but her mind kept drifting back to Jack's message. She couldn't deny that. The offer intrigued her, but she had learned the hard way that people like Jack Anderson didn't stay interested for long, not when they realized you didn't fit the mold of who they wanted in their world. As she cleared a table near the window, she noticed a familiar figure walk through the door. It was Jack. His sharp suit and confident stride made him stand out even in this upscale restaurant. Christina's heart rate quickened, and she instinctively turned her back, hoping he wouldn't see her. But of course he did. "Christina," he called out, his voice smooth and unwavering. She froze. "I thought I might find you here." She turned slowly, offering a polite smile, though she could feel the tension in her shoulders. "Mr. Anderson," she said, her voice steady but with a trace of hesitation. "What brings you here tonight?" He stepped closer, his gaze never leaving hers. "I needed to talk to you. Is this a bad time?" Christina felt a knot form in her stomach. She had hoped this day would never come, that she could simply walk away from the offer and move on. But here he was, standing in front of her, his eyes full of determination. "I don't think I have anything more to say, Mr. Anderson," she said, trying to keep her voice neutral. Jack's expression softened slightly, but there was still an edge to his words. "Christina, I know you think you don't belong in my world, but you don't know that for sure. I've seen what you can do. You're not just any waitress. You've got skills that could make a real difference in my company." She shook her head, her gaze drifting away from him. "I don't need your company, Jack. I don't want your money, your power, or your world." There was a brief silence between them. Christina could feel Jack's eyes on her, studying her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "But you've already saved my life once," he said, his voice low. "I think you have a lot more to offer than you're willing to admit. I don't know why you're resisting this, but I'm not going to let you walk away from this opportunity just yet." Christina met his gaze, her heart pounding in her chest. "You don't get it, do you?" she said quietly. "I'm not like you, Jack. I don't want to be in your world. I don't belong there." Jack didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step closer to her, his presence overwhelming. "I know this isn't easy for you, but I want you to know that I believe in you. I see something in you that's worth investing in. You don't have to do this alone." Christina looked at him for a long moment, her mind racing. She had never allowed herself to rely on anyone, had never wanted to be anyone's project. But Jack's words, his quiet belief in her, hit her harder than she expected. She had never considered the possibility that someone like him could see something in her. She had always assumed that people in his world only saw her for what she was, a waitress. But maybe Jack saw something more. Maybe he saw her potential. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words caught in her throat. She wasn't ready to make this decision, not yet. Jack gave her a small smile, understanding her hesitation. "No pressure, Christina. Just think about it. I'll give you some time." He turned to leave, but paused for a moment. "I'll be here when you're ready." With that, he walked away, leaving Christina standing there, her thoughts swirling. As she watched him disappear into the crowd, she couldn't help but wonder what her future would look like if she took that leap. Would she regret staying in her comfort zone, or would she look back and realize she had missed out on something extraordinary? The following days were filled with restless nights for Christina Matthews. She couldn't stop thinking about Jack Anderson's words, the look in his eyes, and the promise of something more. She had worked hard to build a simple, straightforward life, one where she didn't have to rely on anyone. But Jack's offer, his belief in her potential, kept tugging at her thoughts. Could she really leave everything she knew behind and step into a world so different from her own? Her usual routine, work at the restaurant, quick meals, and quiet nights, now felt mundane compared to the world Jack had shown her. On her day off, she found herself walking aimlessly through Central Park, the weight of the decision bearing down on her shoulders. She needed clarity, needed to figure out what she really wanted. Sitting on a bench, she looked up at the sky, the crisp fall air sweeping through the trees, and for the first time in days, she felt a sense of peace. But the peace didn't last long. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to find a message from Jack. "Christina, I understand you need time, but I think you're making a mistake by not giving this a chance. My offer still stands. You're worth so much more than you realize. Jack Anderson." The message was simple, but it hit her like a wave. It wasn't just about the job, it was about his faith in her. She had spent so long doubting herself, afraid of what might happen if she took a chance, but now, with Jack's words echoing in her mind, she was starting to wonder if maybe it was time to stop holding herself back. The decision felt impossible, yet inevitable. She needed a way out of the life she had created, a way to challenge herself beyond what she thought was possible. Maybe this was that chance. As the days went by, Christina couldn't shake the feeling that she was standing at a crossroads, with one path leading back to the safety of her comfort zone and the other into the unknown. It wasn't until the next evening, as she served a table in the back corner of the restaurant, that she realized she couldn't ignore the pull of change any longer. As she refilled a water glass, she glanced over at Jack's usual spot, but he wasn't there. Instead, a man in a dark suit sat alone, tapping away on his phone. He looked vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place him. She moved toward him to take his order, but before she could reach the table, he looked up and met her gaze. "Christina," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I think we need to talk." It was Jack, but there was something different in his expression. There was no sign of the confident CEO she had seen the other night, no hint of arrogance. Instead, there was something softer, something more human. "Mr. Anderson?" she asked, unsure of what was happening. "No," he said, shaking his head. "Call me Jack. We've done enough business talk." I just wanted to check in with you. See where your head is at. She stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to say. She had thought the decision was clear. Turn him down and keep her life as it was. But now, with him sitting there in front of her, everything seemed less certain. I've been thinking about your offer, she said finally, her voice low. But I don't think it's the right path for me. Jack didn't seem surprised. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with an intensity that made her feel like he was seeing straight through her. I understand, he said, his tone gentle but firm. But I need you to hear me out, Christina. I know you're scared. We all are, when faced with something unknown. But the thing is, you're already more than you think you are. You have the skills. You have the intelligence. You're just afraid to use them. Her heart pounded in her chest as she met his gaze. I've spent my whole life trying to fit in, trying to make do with what I have, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And now you're asking me to leave all of that behind, to step into a world that feels so far from where I started. Jack leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. Christina, you're not leaving who you are. You're just expanding it. The world I'm offering you is full of challenges, yes, but it's also full of opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to grow, to make a real difference. She was silent for a long time, her mind racing with conflicting thoughts. She had always been the one to avoid risks, to keep her head down and do what was expected. But now, with Jack sitting there, his words ringing in her ears, she felt something stir inside her. Could she really do this? Could she take that leap? I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely audible. Jack smiled, but there was no mockery in his expression. Fear is natural, he said, but it doesn't have to control you. It's just a sign that you're about to do something important, something that will change everything. His words hit her harder than she expected. For the first time in years, Christina allowed herself to imagine a future beyond the confines of her restaurant job. The idea of a new beginning, of something bigger, felt overwhelming but exhilarating at the same time. Finally, she spoke. I don't know if I'm ready, she said, her voice shaking slightly. Jack stood up and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to be ready, Christina, he said quietly. You just have to be willing to try. She looked at him, her heart racing, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this wasn't just about a job offer. Maybe it was about finding the courage to truly step into the life she was meant to lead. The following week, Christina found herself back at the restaurant, her mind consumed with Jack's offer. She had spent every night thinking about it, replaying their conversations over and over in her head. Her coworkers had noticed the change in her demeanor. She was quieter than usual, lost in thought, as if a decision was looming over her. It wasn't just about the job anymore. It was about who she was becoming and the life she had worked so hard to protect. The simplicity of her routine, the safety of her quiet existence, now seemed at odds with the opportunities Jack had promised her. As the days passed, Jack's words echoed in her mind. You don't have to be ready, Christina. You just have to be willing to try. She knew what he meant. Fear was holding her back. Fear of failure. Fear of stepping into a world that didn't seem to fit her. Yet, as the days passed, something within her began to shift. She started to realize that staying in her comfort zone might not be the safe option she had always thought it was. That night, as the dinner rush came to an end, Christina stood in the quiet of the restaurant, her apron still on, wiping down the tables. The usual hum of conversation had faded, leaving behind only the clinking of silverware and the soft rustling of napkins. She was alone for a moment, lost in thought. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her back to reality. It was a message from Jack. Christina, I know you need time, but I want to remind you that the offer still stands. No pressure. Just think about it. Jack Anderson. Her hand hovered over the phone, but instead of replying immediately, she slipped it back into her pocket. She needed to make this decision for herself. The next morning, she woke early, the cold morning air slipping through the cracks of her apartment window. The city outside was still asleep, but Christina felt restless. She had always been a morning person, using the early hours to collect her thoughts, but today felt different. As she sipped her coffee, staring out at the skyline, she knew it was time to act. She couldn't keep hiding behind fear. The life Jack had promised her wasn't one she could ignore. It wasn't about the money or the power, she knew that much. It was about her potential, about doing something that mattered, about stepping into a world where her skills, her intelligence, and her quiet strength could make a real difference. She sent Jack a message, the words flowing out of her fingers before she could stop herself. "I'm ready. Let's talk." It was a simple text, but it was a turning point. When Jack responded, it was almost immediate. "Great. Let's meet tomorrow at the office. I'll have everything ready for you. Looking forward to it." Jack. Christina felt a rush of nerves, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was anticipation. She spent the rest of the day preparing herself for what was ahead. She took extra care in choosing her clothes, opting for a simple but polished look. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about feeling confident in her own skin. The subway ride to Anderson Capital felt longer than usual. As the train rattled beneath her, she couldn't help but replay the events that had led her here. She had always been cautious, never letting herself dream too big. But now, for the first time, she could see a future that was not bound by her past. When she arrived at the building, the sheer scale of it took her breath away. The glass and steel tower seemed to stretch up into the clouds, a symbol of everything she had ever thought she couldn't reach. But as she entered the lobby, a wave of calm washed over her. This was the next step. It was unfamiliar, yes, but it was hers to take. A receptionist greeted her with a warm smile. "Ms. Matthews, Mr. Anderson is expecting you. Please, follow me." The elevator ride was quick, the floors rushing past as the doors opened to a sleek, modern office. Jack was standing by his desk, a warm smile on his face as he rose to greet her. "Christina, I'm glad you could make it. I know this is a big step, but I'm confident you're going to do great things here." The way he said it, with such genuine belief, made Christina feel like she was already part of something important. They sat down, and Jack began to explain the details of the position, what she would be doing, what challenges she would face, and the opportunities that awaited her. It all sounded daunting, but she was ready. As the conversation continued, Christina felt a surge of excitement she hadn't experienced in years. This was her moment. When the meeting ended, Jack extended his hand to her. "Welcome to the team, Christina. I'm looking forward to working with you." She shook his hand firmly, a smile creeping across her face. It wasn't the end of her journey. It was just the beginning. As she left the building, her mind raced with the possibilities. She was no longer the quiet waitress at the restaurant. She was someone who had stepped into her potential, ready to make her mark on the world. The city felt different now, like it was full of opportunities waiting for her to grab. She had taken the leap, and for the first time in a long time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she was exactly where she was meant to be. Christina's first day at Anderson Capital was unlike anything she had ever experienced. She stepped into the gleaming headquarters, her mind racing with both excitement and nervousness. The building itself was a towering testament to success, a place where powerful people made life-changing decisions every day. She had spent years working in the quiet corners of restaurants, serving others, staying out of the spotlight, and now, here she was, standing at the threshold of a world she had once thought was beyond her reach. As she walked through the sleek hallways, she couldn't help but feel a little out of place. The polished floors, the crisp suits, the confident strides of her new colleagues, it all felt so different from the familiar hum of the restaurant. But there was no turning back now. Jack's words echoed in her mind. "You're not leaving who you are. You're just expanding it." Her first meeting with the team was scheduled for 10 o'clock, and as she made her way into the conference room, she was greeted with warm smiles and handshakes. The room was filled with some of the brightest minds in the industry, analysts, strategists, and financial experts. And there she was, a former waitress, about to enter this world of high stakes and sharp suits. Jack stood at the front, his presence commanding the room. "Christina, glad you could make it," he said, his voice smooth but warm. "We're excited to have you on board. Let's get started." Christina took a deep breath and walked to the front of the room. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she truly belonged. She knew that she had the skills to thrive here. All she had to do was trust herself. As Jack outlined the projects the team would be working on, Christina listened intently, absorbing every detail. She had been trained in the art of listening, after all, and now she realized that her ability to read people, to understand underlying emotions and motives, could be just as valuable in this world as it had been in the restaurant. The morning flew by in a blur of meetings, introductions, and discussions. Christina felt a sense of accomplishment with every word she contributed, every suggestion she made. It was as if she had been waiting for this moment her whole life, waiting for the chance to prove that she was more than just a waitress, that she had the intellect and the drive to succeed in a place like this. As the day wore on, she began to realize that Jack had seen something in her that she hadn't fully recognized in herself. It wasn't just about the skills she had learned on the job. It was about her ability to think critically, to see patterns others missed, and to make quick, decisive choices in moments of uncertainty. Those were the qualities that set her apart. By the time the workday came to a close, Christina felt a surge of confidence she hadn't known she was capable of. She wasn't just surviving in this new world, she was thriving. She had a seat at the table, and she wasn't going to waste it. But as she left the office, heading toward the subway, a small voice of doubt crept into her mind. Could she really keep up with these people? They had years of experience, advanced degrees, and connections that she could never have dreamed of. What did she have that they didn't? The answer came to her quickly. She had herself. She had her unique perspective, her ability to stay calm under pressure, and her willingness to work harder than anyone else in the room. As the days passed, Christina continued to grow into her role. She spent long hours at her desk, poring over data, analyzing trends, and offering insights that made a real impact on the team's projects. Slowly, she began to see that Jack had been right. She wasn't out of place here. She was exactly where she was meant to be. One afternoon, a few weeks into her new role, Jack called her into his office. She felt a slight flutter in her chest as she walked through the door, wondering what he wanted to discuss. "Christina," he said with a smile, gesturing for her to sit. "I've been reviewing your work, and I have to say, I'm impressed. You've really stepped up since you started. I want to give you more responsibility." Christina's heart raced as she processed his words. More responsibility? She had always been the quiet one, the observer. But now, she was being recognized for her contributions, her ideas, and her dedication. "What do you have in mind?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Jack leaned forward, his eyes focused on her. "I'm putting you in charge of a new project. It's a high-profile one, and I think you're the right person to lead it." Christina couldn't believe what she was hearing. Led a project? She had gone from serving food in a small diner to running a major initiative for one of the most successful companies in the world. It was surreal, but it was real, and it was hers. "I won't let you down," she said, her voice filled with conviction. Jack smiled, his eyes warm with approval. "I know you won't. You've got what it takes, Christina." As she left his office, Christina felt a sense of pride wash over her. She had earned this, and she wasn't going to stop now. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but she was ready for whatever challenges came her way. She had found her place, her purpose, and the confidence to chase her dreams. And nothing was going to stand in her way. As weeks passed, Christina continued to impress everyone at Anderson Capital. She had become an integral part of the team, consistently offering fresh insights and innovative strategies. Her leadership on the high-profile project Jack had assigned her was nothing short of remarkable. She was pushing boundaries, challenging old methods, and creating results that exceeded expectations. It was clear to everyone, including herself, that she had found her true calling. But despite her success, there were still moments of doubt that crept in. The world she was now a part of, the world of billion-dollar deals, high-stakes decisions, and corporate power, still felt so foreign. Her roots were in a much simpler place, one where survival was a daily challenge, and dreams seemed distant. Yet every time doubt began to creep in, Jack's voice echoed in her mind. "You don't have to be ready, Christina. You just have to be willing to try." It had been a few months since she had joined the team, and in that time, she had transformed from a waitress in a restaurant to a rising star in the corporate world. But now, she found herself at a crossroads. Jack had called her into his office once again. The tone of his message was different this time, more serious, more urgent. As she walked into the office, she noticed the look on Jack's face. It was the same confidence he always had, but there was something else there, something deeper. "Christina," he began, "we're in a critical situation. There's a potential deal that could change everything for the company, but we've hit a roadblock. I need someone who can think outside the box, someone who isn't afraid to take risks." He paused, his eyes never leaving hers. "I need you to take the lead on this. We've got one shot, and I trust you to make it work." Christina's heart skipped a beat. This was it. The kind of opportunity she had dreamed of but never thought would come her way. The kind of challenge that could catapult her career to new heights. She had been waiting for this moment, yet now that it was here, she found herself questioning everything. Could she really handle it? Was she truly capable of leading a deal that would shape the future of the company? Jack must have sensed her hesitation because he leaned forward, his gaze unwavering. "Christina, you've proven yourself over and over again. You've shown me, and the entire team, that you're more than capable. You belong here. Now it's time to show everyone else what you can do." His words were both a challenge and a reassurance, pushing her to confront her doubts and embrace the power within herself. She took a deep breath, letting his words sink in. This was her moment. She had come so far from where she had started, and now, standing at this precipice, she could either take the leap or turn back. But turning back wasn't an option. Not anymore. "I won't let you down," Christina said, her voice steady with resolve. Jack smiled, the same confidence and trust in his eyes that she had seen from the very beginning. "I know you won't. Now, go make it happen." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Christina threw herself into the project with everything she had. She worked late nights, met with potential partners, and negotiated deals that had once seemed impossible. Her mind was sharp, her instincts guiding her every step of the way. She wasn't just leading the project, she was owning it. There were challenges, of course. The pressure was immense, and at times, the weight of it all felt overwhelming. But Christina had learned something important in her time at Anderson Capital. She had learned to trust herself, to lean into the discomfort, and to push through the fear. As the deal neared its final stages, Christina stood in the conference room, surrounded by her team. The numbers had been crunched, the contracts were nearly ready, and the future of the company was about to be decided. She had done everything she could. Now, it was time for the final pitch. As she presented the deal to the board of directors, Christina's heart raced. She had come so far, from the quiet waitress in a small restaurant to standing in front of some of the most powerful people in the business world. Her voice was calm and confident as she outlined the terms of the deal, her eyes meeting the board members as they listened intently. When she finished, there was a long pause. For a moment, it felt like the entire room was holding its breath. Finally, Jack spoke, his voice filled with approval. "Christina, you've done it. This is the deal that will set us on the path to success." The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in a long while, Christina allowed herself to feel the weight of the moment. She had done it. She had led the deal, and it had been a success. As the celebrations continued, Jack approached her, a proud smile on his face. "I knew you could do it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. Christina felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. This moment wasn't just about the deal. It was about everything she had overcome to get here. She had taken the leap, and it had paid off. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. Jack nodded. "You earned this. But remember, this is just the beginning. There's so much more you can accomplish." Christina looked around at the team, her team. She had proven to herself that she belonged in this world, and she was ready for whatever came next. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She was ready, and she knew, deep down, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the weeks went by, Christina's confidence continued to grow. She had successfully led the high-profile deal, earning the respect of her colleagues and superiors. The weight of the responsibility that had once felt so overwhelming now seemed like a challenge she could take on with ease. Anderson Capital was thriving, and Christina was at the heart of it. But with success came new challenges, and as much as she had gained, there was still a part of her that felt unsettled. Her transition from a simple waitress to a powerful force in the business world had been nothing short of remarkable, but there were moments when the weight of it all seemed too much to bear. One evening, as she sat at her desk, reviewing some new contracts, a knock on her office door broke her concentration. "Come in," she called, glancing up to see Jack standing in the doorway. He looked as confident as ever, his sharp suit giving him an air of authority, but there was something different in his eyes tonight. Something she couldn't quite place. "Christina," he said, his voice steady but with a hint of concern. "How's everything going? You've been running at full speed for a while now. I wanted to check in." Christina smiled, trying to hide the exhaustion she felt. "Everything's Going great, Jack. I'm just trying to keep up with the pace. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. She had been pushing herself harder than ever, and while the results had been impressive, the toll on her mental and physical well-being was starting to show. Jack didn't miss a beat. He studied her for a moment, his eyes narrowing slightly. I've seen the way you've been working, Christina. You're doing amazing things, but I think you're starting to burn out. It's okay to take a step back when you need to. I can't have you running on empty. Christina hesitated. She had always been one to push through, to prove that she could handle it all. Admitting she was struggling felt like a failure, something she wasn't ready to face. But Jack's gentle words, laced with concern, struck a chord. I'm fine, she said a little too quickly. Really, I've got it under control. Jack wasn't buying it. He stepped further into the room, pulling up a chair and sitting across from her. Christina, you've proven you can handle whatever comes your way. But you're not invincible. I've been where you are, pushing myself too hard, thinking I could do it all without asking for help. Trust me, I've learned the hard way that it's okay to lean on others when you need to. His words hit her harder than she expected. She had always been independent, never relying on anyone but herself. But now, for the first time, she saw the truth in what Jack was saying. She had been so focused on proving herself that she had ignored the toll it was taking on her. I'll think about it, Christina replied softly, her voice betraying her vulnerability. Jack smiled, standing up and giving her a reassuring pat on the shoulder. That's all I ask. You've earned a break, Christina. Don't forget that. As he left her office, Christina sat back in her chair, her mind racing. She knew Jack was right. She had been working nonstop, trying to prove she was worthy of her place at Anderson Capital. But now, she wasn't so sure. Maybe it was time to reevaluate her approach. Maybe it was time to let go of the constant pressure she placed on herself and start focusing on maintaining a balance. That night, Christina found herself lying awake in bed, her thoughts swirling. She had made so much progress in such a short amount of time, but at what cost? She had sacrificed sleep, personal time, and even her own well-being in the pursuit of success. And for what? To climb higher, only to find herself at the edge of exhaustion? She had always been afraid of slowing down, of taking a step back, but now she realized that sometimes it was necessary to recharge in order to move forward. The next day, she made a decision. She would take some time off, just a few days, enough to rest and clear her mind. She would focus on herself for a change. It wasn't an easy choice. She had always been the type to push through, to keep going even when her body and mind were telling her to stop. But she knew it was the right thing to do. When she shared her decision with Jack, he smiled and nodded, clearly relieved. You've made the right choice, he said. And don't worry. Everything here will be fine while you take care of yourself. Christina spent the next few days doing things she hadn't done in a long time. She visited a park she used to walk through as a child, took long walks, and reconnected with old friends. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of peace. The constant pressure, the deadlines, the endless work, it all seemed so distant. She realized how much she had been missing. When she returned to Anderson Capital, she felt renewed, ready to dive back into her work with a fresh perspective. She had learned an important lesson. Success was not just about pushing forward at all costs. It was also about knowing when to pause, reflect, and recharge. Jack noticed the change in her. She seemed more centered, more present. I'm glad to see you back, he said with a smile. You're ready to take on whatever comes next. Christina smiled, feeling a new sense of balance within herself. She wasn't just a workhorse anymore. She was someone who knew her worth and understood the importance of self-care. And with that realization, she knew she was ready for whatever challenges the future would bring. As the months passed, Christina found herself becoming more comfortable in her new role at Anderson Capital. The confidence that Jack had instilled in her was growing. Every day, and the pressure that once seemed overwhelming had become something she could manage. She had taken the time to rest and recharge, and now she was back, stronger than ever. But even with all her progress, there were still moments when the world she had entered felt like an impossible puzzle, complex and intimidating. That was until one particular morning, when everything changed. Christina was in her office, reviewing some investment proposals, when Jack walked in, his face more serious than usual. She immediately sensed that something was different. Christina, we need to talk, he said, his voice firm but filled with a hint of urgency. Christina looked up from her desk, her heart racing slightly. "What's going on?" she asked, trying to keep her tone steady. Jack closed the door behind him, walking over to her desk and leaning against it. "There's a new opportunity on the table, an acquisition that could potentially make or break us. It's a high-risk move, but if we pull it off, it could put Anderson Capital in an entirely new league." Christina listened closely, her mind already turning the information over. She knew Jack well enough to recognize that he wasn't asking for a decision. He was giving her a chance to lead once again. "What do you need from me?" she asked, already prepared to dive in. Jack met her gaze. "I want you to lead the team on this one. I believe you're the one who can make this work." His words were simple, but Christina could feel the weight behind them. This was a challenge unlike any she had faced before, and the stakes were higher than ever. But she also knew this was the opportunity she had been waiting for, the moment to prove herself on a larger scale. "I won't let you down," Christina said, her voice steady with resolve. Jack smiled, nodding. "I know you won't. You've got everything it takes." The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Christina threw herself into the project with the same determination and drive that had carried her this far. She worked closely with the team, meeting with potential partners, negotiating terms, and carefully evaluating the risks. The more she got into it, the more she realized that she was no longer the nervous newcomer trying to fit in. She was a leader, someone others relied on, someone who could make tough decisions and see them through. But as the project progressed, the challenges only grew. The more they learned about the company they were looking to acquire, the more complicated things became. There were hidden debts, legal issues, and complications in the business model that made it difficult to get a clear picture of the company's true value. The stress was building, and Christina could feel the pressure mounting. There were moments when she felt like she was losing control, when the weight of it all threatened to overwhelm her. But then she remembered Jack's words. "You don't have to be ready, Christina. You just have to be willing to try." In those moments of doubt, she found the strength to keep moving forward. She took a step back, reassessed the situation, and relied on her instincts to guide her. Slowly but surely, the pieces began to fall into place. She worked with the team to address the issues, finding creative solutions to the challenges that had seemed insurmountable. And when it all came together, it was nothing short of a triumph. The deal was sealed, the acquisition went through, and Anderson Capital had secured a place at the top of the industry. As Christina stood in the boardroom, surrounded by the team, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. She had led them through a storm, and together, they had emerged victorious. Jack approached her, his smile wide with pride. "I knew you could do it," he said, clapping her on the back. "You were the right person for the job." Christina smiled back, feeling a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. This was more than just a successful business deal. It was proof that she had truly arrived. She had found her place, not just in the company, but in this world. And it felt like she was only just getting started. As the celebration continued, Christina couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. The woman who had once been afraid to step outside her comfort zone was now leading one of the most successful projects in the company's history. She had proven to herself that she could not only survive in this world, but thrive in it. She was ready for whatever came next. Her journey wasn't over. It was just beginning. The success of the acquisition had brought a sense of satisfaction to Christina, but it also came with a new weight of responsibility. She had earned her place at Anderson Capital, but now there were expectations. People were starting to notice her, to see her not just as a rising star, but as a leader who had already proven herself. The challenge now was to stay ahead, to continue to push boundaries while managing the increasing demands of her new role. As the weeks passed, Christina threw herself into her work even more. She was determined to prove that her success wasn't a fluke, that she truly belonged in this world. But the pressure was mounting. The projects became bigger, the stakes higher, and with each success came the expectation of even greater results. Christina found herself working longer hours, staying late into the night to meet deadlines, and constantly striving to exceed expectations. She felt the weight of it all, both the excitement of her achievements and the relentless pressure to maintain them. It wasn't just the work that was exhausting. It was the constant balancing act of proving herself while trying to stay true to who she was. She had come a long way from the quiet waitress she once was, but sometimes She wondered if she had lost a part of herself along the way. It wasn't until one evening, when Jack called her into his office, that she realized just how much she had been pushing herself. As she entered, Jack was sitting at his desk, reviewing some documents. He looked up when she walked in, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Christina, how's everything going?" he asked, his tone calm, but with a hint of knowing. She hesitated, not wanting to admit how overwhelmed she felt. She had always been the one to push through, to keep going no matter what. But Jack had been there before, and he could see right through her. "It's going well," she said, her voice slightly strained. "Just busy, you know? Lots of projects on my plate." Jack studied her for a moment, his eyes sharp as ever. "Christina, you've been working at full speed for months. I'm proud of everything you've accomplished, but I'm starting to see signs that you might be pushing yourself too hard." His words hit her harder than she expected. She had been so focused on proving herself, on maintaining her place in this new world, that she hadn't stopped to check in with herself. "I'm fine, Jack," she said, trying to brush it off. "I can handle it." Jack leaned forward, his voice firm but kind. "I know you can handle it. But that's not the point. The point is that you're human, Christina. You don't have to do it all on your own, and you don't have to burn yourself out to prove your worth." Christina swallowed hard, the truth in his words sinking in. She had been so focused on the external expectations, what others thought of her, how she was perceived, that she had forgotten to check in with herself. She had forgotten to take care of her own well-being. Jack's gaze softened as he continued. "You've already shown everyone what you're capable of. Now, it's time to show yourself that you're enough, just as you are. You don't have to keep proving anything." For the first time in a long while, Christina felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had been carrying the burden of her own expectations for so long, trying to meet standards that weren't hers to begin with. She had let the pressure of her success overshadow the simple joy of her accomplishments. Jack's words were a reminder that it was okay to step back, to take a breath, and to focus on herself. "Thank you," Christina said quietly, her voice soft with gratitude. Jack smiled, nodding. "Take a break, Christina. You've earned it. And when you're ready, we'll take on the next challenge together." The conversation left Christina with much to think about. As she walked out of Jack's office, she felt a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. It was time for a change. She didn't need to keep proving herself to others. What mattered most was finding a balance, maintaining her integrity, and being true to herself. The next day, Christina made a decision. She was going to take some time off. She needed to recharge, to step away from the constant hustle and regain perspective. She had given everything she had to Anderson Capital, and now, it was time to give something back to herself. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to rest without guilt. She spent the next few days reflecting, reconnecting with old friends, and doing the things that brought her peace. She revisited her roots, reminding herself of the things that had once made her happy before the world of business had taken over. When she returned to work, it was with a renewed sense of purpose. She was ready to face the challenges ahead, but this time, she would do it on her own terms. She knew that she didn't have to be perfect. She didn't have to prove anything to anyone. She had already proven to herself that she was capable, and that, in the end, was enough. Christina had come a long way since she first walked into Anderson Capital. From the quiet waitress trying to make ends meet to a powerful leader capable of shaping the company's future, the transformation was nothing short of extraordinary. But despite her success, a lingering feeling of unease had begun to creep back into her mind. The world she had entered was still unfamiliar, and with each new challenge came the pressure to prove herself all over again. She had learned so much, gained so much, and yet sometimes she couldn't help but feel like an outsider, someone who didn't truly belong. As she sat in her office, reviewing the latest projections for a new project, the weight of her responsibilities pressed on her shoulders. The office was quiet, the hum of the city barely audible through the windows. She had always been a diligent worker, pushing herself to meet deadlines and exceed expectations. But lately, she felt like she was losing touch with why she had started this journey in the first place. What had begun as a desire to prove herself had slowly turned into a quest for perfection, a desire to constantly achieve more. And now, that desire was starting to take its toll. The stress was mounting, the expectations were high, and Christina was beginning to wonder if she was losing sight of what truly mattered. It wasn't just about the numbers or the deals anymore. It was about her. She needed a break, a chance to step back, clear her mind, and remember why she had chosen this path. It was time to take control of her life once again, to slow down and breathe. That night, she made a decision. She would take a few days off to recharge, to reconnect with herself and the things that mattered. No more constant work, no more pushing herself to the brink. It was time for her to focus on her well-being and regain balance. The next day, she walked into Jack's office, determined to let him know about her decision. He was busy, as always, but looked up when she entered. "Christina," he said, smiling. "How's everything going? You look different today." She smiled softly, feeling a wave of relief wash over her. "I've been thinking a lot lately, Jack," she began. "About everything. I'm grateful for everything I've achieved, but I realize that I've been pushing myself too hard. I need some time to recharge." Jack's expression softened, and he leaned back in his chair. "I've noticed it, Christina," he said, his voice kind but firm. "You've been working nonstop. You're one of the most dedicated people I know, but you're human. You can't keep running at full speed forever. I'm glad to hear you're taking the time you need." Christina felt a wave of gratitude toward him. He had always believed in her, even when she doubted herself. And now, his support meant more than ever. "Thank you, Jack. I appreciate your understanding," she said. "I just need to reset, to find my center again. I've been so focused on achieving the next big thing that I forgot what it feels like to just breathe." Jack nodded. "You've earned it. Take the time you need. We'll hold things down here while you focus on yourself." As Christina walked out of his office, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. She was making the right decision. It was time to let go of the pressure and give herself permission to rest. Over the next few days, she took the time to reconnect with her roots. She spent time with friends, visited places that brought her peace, and allowed herself to simply enjoy life without the weight of constant deadlines and expectations. For the first time in months, she felt truly free. When she returned to the office, it was as if a new Christina had emerged. She felt refreshed, grounded, and ready to take on whatever challenges came next. But this time, she approached her work with a new perspective. It wasn't about proving herself anymore. It was about finding balance, embracing growth, and making an impact without losing sight of who she was. As she sat in her office, reviewing the latest project details, Christina felt a sense of clarity she hadn't experienced in a long time. She wasn't just here to succeed, she was here to thrive. And thriving meant taking care of herself, pursuing her goals with intention, and staying true to the values that had brought her this far. It wasn't about perfection. It was about progress. And that was enough. Jack had been right. It wasn't about doing everything perfectly. It was about finding a way to do it all while staying grounded and true to herself. And with that realization, Christina knew that she was ready to tackle whatever came next. She wasn't just a leader at Anderson Capital. She was the kind of leader who knew the importance of self-care, balance, and resilience. And that, more than anything, would be her greatest strength. It had been a few months since Christina returned from her break, and the weight of the decision to take time off seemed to have worked wonders. Her mind was clearer, her energy renewed, and for the first time in a while, she felt a deep sense of peace within herself. She wasn't just back at Anderson Capital. She was more in control of her life than she had ever been. But even as things began to settle, new challenges were waiting around the corner, and they came quickly. One Tuesday afternoon, Jack called her into his office again. Christina felt a slight flutter in her stomach. There was something different about his demeanor today. He wasn't the easygoing leader she had come to know over the past few months. He was more intense, more focused. "Christina," Jack said, his voice serious, "we have a situation." Her heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" she asked, keeping her voice steady. "There's a new player in the market. A competitor we didn't see coming. They've been making aggressive moves, and they're starting to take clients we've worked with for years. I need you to lead a team to handle this. We can't afford to lose ground." Christina's mind immediately kicked into high gear. This was exactly what she had been preparing for, leading the team through a crisis, turning the tide in their favor. But even so, the pressure was undeniable. She wasn't just an employee anymore. She was now a key player in the company's survival. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. Jack's gaze softened. "I knew I could. Count on you. I'm giving you full autonomy on this. You'll decide the strategy, the team, and the approach. But remember, this is a high-risk situation. We need to outsmart them, not just outspend them. Christina nodded. Understood. As she left Jack's office, a sense of purpose washed over her. The weight of responsibility was heavy, but it felt right. This was the kind of challenge she had been working toward her entire career. For days, Christina and her team worked around the clock. They analyzed the competitors' moves, studied their strategies, and anticipated their next steps. The more they uncovered, the more they realized just how dangerous the situation was. This wasn't just about business rivalry. It was about protecting everything they had built. The competitor was aggressive and ruthless, willing to cut corners and take risks that Anderson Capital had never considered. But Christina had an advantage. She had been in the trenches long enough to know how to think on her feet, how to recognize opportunities where others saw only obstacles. It was time to play their game, but on her terms. She quickly assembled her team, a mix of seasoned strategists and new talent, each bringing something unique to the table. Together, they crafted a plan, one that would challenge the competitors' every move while preserving the integrity that Anderson Capital had built over the years. Christina had learned from Jack that sometimes the best strategy wasn't the one that guaranteed victory, but the one that aligned with who you were and what you stood for. By the time the first phase of their strategy was ready, Christina could feel the tension in the air. She was leading her team into battle, and there was no turning back now. As they launched their counteroffensive, Christina couldn't help but reflect on how far she had come. Just a few years ago, she had been serving drinks and clearing tables, unsure of her place in the world. Now, she was leading one of the most important initiatives in the company's history. She felt an immense sense of pride, but also a quiet fear that lurked beneath the surface. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was about everything she had worked for. As the weeks passed, the battle between Anderson Capital and the competitor escalated. The strategies Christina and her team had put in place began to pay off. The competitor underestimated their resilience, their commitment to ethical practices, and their ability to think long-term. Where the competitor relied on quick fixes and aggressive tactics, Christina's team built relationships, offered value, and proved that Anderson Capital wasn't just a business. It was a trusted partner. The tension in the office began to ease, and slowly, the competitors' hold over key clients started to loosen. By the end of the month, Anderson Capital had successfully regained ground. Clients who had once been on the verge of leaving returned, and new opportunities began to appear on the horizon. Jack called Christina into his office again, his expression filled with pride. "You did it," he said, smiling. "You turned the tide." Christina smiled back, a sense of accomplishment flooding through her. "We did it," she corrected, knowing that it had been a team effort. Jack chuckled. "Right, but you led them through it. You kept the team focused and grounded, even when things were at their worst." Christina felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She had worked hard to earn his trust, and now, for the first time, she truly believed that she belonged. "Thank you, Jack," she said quietly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the man who had given her a chance when no one else would. Jack nodded. "You're more than ready for what's next. This was just the beginning, Christina. You've proven yourself." As Christina left his office, she couldn't help but feel a sense of calm wash over her. She had faced the storm and come out stronger on the other side. She had learned that leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about trusting herself, her team, and her ability to adapt. She wasn't just the quiet waitress anymore. She was Christina Matthews, a leader at Anderson Capital, and she was ready for whatever came next. The months that followed Christina's victory over the competitor at Anderson Capital were a whirlwind of new challenges, opportunities, and growth. She had cemented her place within the company, and her leadership was more than just recognized, it was celebrated. But even as things seemed to be falling into place, Christina couldn't help but feel a nagging question in the back of her mind. What was next? She had proven herself in every way, earning the trust of her colleagues and the respect of Jack, but as she sat in her office one quiet afternoon, the weight of uncertainty settled in. Her journey had been extraordinary, but the road ahead felt endless, and the desire for something more than just success in business was beginning to rise within her. She had spent so much of her life proving herself to others, but what about proving something to herself? What did she truly want? One afternoon, Jack called her into his office again. As she entered, she noticed the change in his expression. This time, he wasn't smiling. Instead, there was a look of determination in his eyes. "Christina," Jack began, his voice firm. "We've been through a lot together, and I have something big to discuss with you." She could tell from his tone that this was going to be another pivotal moment. "What's going on?" she asked, leaning slightly forward in her chair. Jack took a deep breath, his fingers tapping the edge of his desk. "I've been thinking about your future here. You've done amazing things, but I believe there's even more you could do. You've shown that you can lead teams, handle pressure, and make tough decisions. But I think it's time for you to take on something bigger. We're starting a new division, one that's focused on innovation, sustainability, and growth for the future of Anderson Capital. And I want you to lead it." Christina's heart skipped a beat. Leading a new division? It was a massive opportunity, one that would push her to the very limits of her abilities. She had always been a part of the action, but this would be her chance to shape the future of the company. "Are you sure I'm the right person for this?" she asked, feeling the weight of the decision hanging in the air. Jack smiled, his confidence in her never wavering. "I wouldn't have offered it if I didn't believe in you. You've shown the world what you're capable of, but now it's time for you to take the reins and lead Anderson Capital into the future." Christina sat back, her mind racing. She had achieved so much, but this felt like the next step. It was more than just a career move. It was the opportunity to leave a legacy. She could see the future she had imagined for herself unfolding before her eyes. She could shape this division, make it successful, and create something that would impact not only the company but the industry as a whole. But with the excitement came a sense of responsibility that Christina had never fully realized before. This would be her most challenging venture yet. And yet, as she thought about it, the fear that would have once held her back seemed to melt away. She had already faced so much adversity and had come out stronger each time. She was ready for this. "I'll do it," Christina said, her voice steady with determination. Jack's face lit up with a proud smile. "I knew you would. You're ready for this, Christina." As she left Jack's office, Christina's thoughts were filled with both excitement and anxiety. She had made it this far, but now she would have to prove that she could do even more. She spent the next few weeks meeting with her new team, outlining the vision for the division and making plans for the future. She had a clear idea of what she wanted to achieve, but she also knew that leading this new venture would require something different. It would require patience, innovation, and a willingness to take risks. The work wasn't easy. The pressure was intense. But Christina's passion for the project fueled her every step of the way. She didn't just want to succeed. She wanted to create something that would last, a division that would be recognized for its groundbreaking work and its commitment to pushing boundaries. As the months went by, Christina's new division began to take shape. They launched their first major initiative, a sustainable investment strategy that would position Anderson Capital as a leader in environmental responsibility. The response from both clients and the public was overwhelmingly positive. Christina's ability to think strategically and innovate had paid off. She had done it. She had created something meaningful, something that would have a lasting impact. And as she looked back on her journey, she realized that it wasn't just about the deals, the numbers, or the recognition. It was about the people she had become along the way. She had gone from being a quiet waitress to a powerful leader, and she had done it on her own terms. As Christina sat at her desk, looking out at the skyline, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had found her place, not just in Anderson Capital, but in the world. She had faced every challenge, embraced every opportunity, and had come out on top. She had proven that no matter where you start, you can achieve greatness, if you believe in yourself and never stop pushing forward. And now, as she looked toward the future, Christina knew that the journey was far from over. There were more challenges to face, more opportunities to seize, and more ways to leave her mark on the world. But no matter where her path took her next, she was ready. She had proven to herself that she could do anything. And that was the most powerful lesson of all. This is a powerful and inspiring story about a young woman who rises from humble beginnings to become a leader in the corporate world. Her journey from a quiet waitress to a key figure at Anderson Capital is one of determination, personal growth, and overcoming obstacles. Throughout her career, she faces tough decisions, stressful challenges, and moments of doubt, but each experience shapes her into the person she becomes. As Christina navigates her new role and tackles major business challenges, she learns the importance of self-care, trust, and balance. The story reflects her resilience and determination to not only succeed, but also lead with integrity and authenticity. With each step, she proves that greatness is not about where you start, but about the strength to pursue your dreams. If you enjoy touching stories of personal transformation and triumph, this is a must-read. Christina's journey is a testament to the power of believing in yourself and the impact one can have when they are willing to face their fears head-on. These touching stories remind us that life's biggest victories come when we least expect them. As she continues to lead, Christina's path forward is filled with opportunities, challenges, and the knowledge that she has already overcome the hardest part, learning to trust in her own abilities. This is one of those touching stories that shows the incredible strength of the human spirit and the power of perseverance. Christina's journey from waitress to a corporate leader is more than just a career story. It's a reflection of the strength within all of us to face adversity, grow from it, and ultimately find success. Get ready to be inspired by this touching story of resilience and self-discovery, as Christina finds her true place in a world she once thought she didn't belong to. These touching stories show us that no matter where we begin, with determination and courage, we can rise to the occasion and make a difference.